Hello, this is Mr. Wynn, and this video will be about the Chapter 8 Part 1 test review, so 8.1 through 8.4, that is multiplying, adding, graphing, and graphing. If you failed the test and need a retest, you must write all this down. I'm going to do 5 problems, one of each. So number 1 says multiply this. For multiplication, there are 3 steps. First step is factor everything. Second step is find your restrictions. Third step is to cancel things out. For the top left, there are 3 terms. To factor 3 terms, you must check GCF. There's no number, and take out all 3. After GCF, you check the X method. So I do the X method. On top is A times C. So 2 times negative 15 is negative 30. B is on bottom. What 2 numbers multiply to 30? They can add respect to 7. Would that be 10 and 3? Since 7 is negative, the bigger number has to be negative. And then the 3 has to be positive. Check the multiplication. Negative 10 times positive 3 is negative 30, so that's good. Part of the ACX method means dividing by A. A is 2, so I must show the division part. So I'll write these 2 things, divided by 2, divided by 2. Reduce if you can. So that's really x minus 5. This does not reduce, so move this to the front. So that's really 2x plus 3. Alright, so my top left is factored. I'll replace those 3 things with this. For the top right, there's 2 terms here. 2 terms in GCF. Want to take a 2 out and a x. What's left would be a x plus 5. That's it there. For the bottom, that is 2 terms, GCF, which is none. Do the X method again, or difference of squares. Difference of squares means square root both of them in 2 parentheses, not 1. So that's really x, 5, different signs, positive, negative. And this last thing is one term you just break down. So 10 is 2 times 5. X squared is x times x. So that's fully factored, step 1. Step 2, restrictions come from the bottom. X cannot be, first parentheses, x cannot be negative 5. The x minus 5 has a restriction, x cannot be positive 5, just change the sign. 2 does not have a restriction, 5 did not have a restriction. X is by itself, no parentheses, that means 0. Those are my 3 restrictions, cannot be negative 5, positive 5, and 0. Last step, cancel out. X minus 5, x minus 5. X plus 5, x plus 5. 2, x. And that's it. On top, we have 2x plus 3. On bottom, we have a single 5 and an x, where x cannot be those 3 things. So 3 steps, factor everything, restrictions from the denominator, then cancel out. Number 2, divide. Division is just like addition, like multiplication, but you have to fix it. We will fix division by multiplying by the reciprocal, meaning flipping it. So 12x squared goes on top here, x squared minus 4 goes on bottom there. So now it's like that last problem. So step 1 of multiplication, 3 steps, is factor everything. I'm going to do the x method for the top left. 3 terms, no GCF, x method. Negative 6 on top, negative 1 on bottom, 3 and 2. This is negative, this is positive. Negative is positive, negative, so the multiplication checks out. Divide by A. A is 1, that does not do anything. So I don't have to show that step. This top left turns into x minus 3, x plus 2. The top right, it's 1 term, so just break it down. Do not do GCF, do not do X method. 12 is 3 times 4, but 4 is 2 and 2. So that's really 2 times 2 times 3. And x squared is just x times x. That is my top. For my bottom, I have GCF. I take a 3 out. What's left over is x minus 3. I can't go further. That's linear, so no x method there. In the bottom right, I see difference of squares again, so I'm going to square both of those. 2 parentheses. X, 2, 2, plus, minus. For my restrictions, x cannot be. First one is 3 has no restriction, but x minus 3 has a positive 3 restriction. X plus 2 has a negative 2 restriction. X minus 2 has a positive 2 restriction. Remember, when we're dividing, you have to check the original bottom right here, meaning this part. Also have one restriction, x cannot be 0. Right, last cancel out, and then we're done. So x minus 3, 3 and 3, x plus 2, and that's it. On top, I have 4x squared, because there's 2 times 2, and then x times x. On bottom, x minus 2, where x cannot be those 4 numbers. Adding. For adding, there are 5 steps. First step is factor the denominators. Well, the first one does not factor. I'm going to leave it as w minus 3. It is 2 terms. Leave it together. All right, if it's 2 terms, the most you can do is GCF in the next method. Plus 2. This bottom, that's difference of squares. So I'm going to square both. Do 2 parentheses. W plus 3, w minus 3. Next, I'll find the LCD. LCD, look at all the factors on the denominators. Tell me the most times it appears in a single fraction. I see w minus 3. It appears twice total, but in a single fraction, it appears at most 1 time. So I write it 1 time. Next fraction, I see w plus 3. It appears at most 1 time in a single fraction, so I write it once. That is my LCD. All my denominators need to have that. So step 3 is fix each fraction. Multiply what's missing. The first fraction has the w minus 3, but it's missing the w plus 3. So times by w plus 3 over w plus 3. All right, second fraction is missing nothing. So our bottom is LCD. For the top, we must multiply. Since this is 2 things times 1 thing, you must distribute. So that's really 3w plus 9 plus the right side to leave alone, so plus 2 all over LCD. When you distribute, you probably can combine like terms. So 9 plus 2 combined, which is 3w plus 11 over LCD. Last step is restrictions. W cannot be positive 3 and negative 3, which came from my LCD. So the restrictions from the LCD. You cannot have 0 on the bottom of your denominator. Subtraction, same idea, but fix it to addition. Plus, put a negative 1 up here. So now it's addition problem, 5 steps. Factor the bottoms. This first one, 2 terms, no GCF and no x method, so leave it alone. Plus, there's a negative 4 up here. This bottom one, 3 terms, GCF, I don't see one. X method, I could do that. Negative 10 on top, negative 3 on bottom. That's 5 and 2, negative 5, positive 2. Negative times positive is negative, so the multiplication checks out. Divided by a is 1, that doesn't do anything, so I don't have to show division. It's just x minus 5, x plus 2. Alright, so step 1, factor the bottoms, done. Step 2, find the LCD. I see x minus 5. The most times it appears in a single fraction is once. I see x plus 2. The most times it appears in a single fraction is once. And that's it. Fix each fraction. The first one is missing x plus 2. Ooh. The second one isn't missing anything. We're going to have to multiply this. So we're going to FOIL that. So that will give us 2x squared. That came from this. How's that? Plus 1x. This next one's plus 4x. This one is plus 2 minus 4 all over LCD. Combine like terms. I get 2x squared plus 5x minus 2 all over LCD. Make sure you have restrictions. X cannot be positive 5 or negative 2. Last thing in our test is graphing. Graphing is just like multiplying. There's the same 3 steps. So step 1, factor everything. So we're here. The top, 2 terms. 2 terms means GCF first, the next method. I can take out 3. What's left is x plus 2. On bottom, there's 3 terms. No GCF by an x method. I think it's the same as the last one. Negative 10 on top, negative 3 on bottom, 5, 2, negative, positive. A doesn't do anything because it's 1, so I don't need to show the division. X minus 5, x plus 2. All right, restrictions. X cannot be positive 5 or negative 2. And last is cancel out. X plus 2 is cancel. So my final answer is 3 over x minus 5 is the equation where x cannot be that. Now to graph, we have to do a little more work. So let's move this over here. We have to talk about that final answer, what it really means. Those two restrictions we found were the vertical asymptote. So x cannot be positive 5 or negative 2. There's a horizontal asymptote. That's always k. K is next to the fraction. If it helps you, you put a plus 0 out here, meaning y cannot be 0. If there are canceled out factors, which here we canceled out this x plus 2 right there, that restriction was negative 2. So that turns to a hole. Canceled out factors turn to holes. So this negative 2 moved down. So really we only have one vertical asymptote, one horizontal asymptote, and one hole. I know where to start. The top of my fraction, a, is positive 3. Positive means start on the top right. So when I graph this, all that information in black, that's all I need. Do your asymptotes first. Vertical is up and down. X cannot be positive 5. So positive 5 is pretty close right here. There's positive 5. Y can't be 0. That's the x-axis. I do the top right. So it has to touch that, get on top of it. It has to get over there. Has a curve. And then you have to go diagonally. So flip-flop. Has to go over here. Has to go down here. And curves like a boomerang. All right. Lastly, I do the hole. X can be negative 2. So go to negative 2. Now put the hole on the curve right there. And that's it. You can always check that picture in your calculator. Make sure you do the asymptotes first, then the curves, either top right and bottom left, or bottom right and top left. Then draw your holes, and that should be it. Again, this is Mr. Nguyen. Thanks for watching. Good luck on the retests. Bye.